One Piece chapter 1045, and holy smokes, Oda, what are you up to? So, I mean, he just went full LoonyToons mode in this chapter, and what can I say? I'm not even disappointed. So, let's talk about the details later. The whole chapter is basically Luffy versus Kaido in a more extended way. So, the chapter starts off with Kaido remarking on Luffy, saying that, well, he expected Luffy to die. Everyone expected Luffy to die, but he didn't. Luffy thought the same thing, and we move on. We move on and start the fight. And, well, he sort of, out of literally everyone else in the group, I mean, who are like active and alive, barely, none of them could comment on Luffy's fruit, but Kaido picks up on it, saying that it's not your typical paramecia, it's more of a zone. So that to me feels very natural for a person like Kaido, who's been around the pirate world with rocks and everyone else. He's seen the craziest powers in the world, but this is something he's never seen before, which is a remark to basically parallel what the Gorosei said about Luffy's power being the most ridiculous. We move on and the fight starts while Kaido just literally gobbles Luffy up, thinking that he's probably gonna get digested or something. Then Luffy pulls off his typical cartoonish vibes by becoming a balloon and inflates Kaido. And Momo and Yamato are very surprised. I mean, if Luffy was in his gear 3rd, if, for example, he wasn't in his gear 5, he just went into Kaido's stomach, even if he inflated, I don't think Kaido would be that affected. I don't think Devil Fruit powers would work like that with Kaido, especially if you're not awakened. So from this point onwards, we should start suspecting what Kaido suspects, that if it is an awakening of a normal paramecia, what would happen is Luffy would turn into rubber, his surroundings would turn into rubber, but Kaido would not. So, I mean, this is something very special, and this comes back to the remark I've put out in chapter 1044. Or was it 43? I think I said it in 43 about Luffy's powers being all 3 forms of devil fruits, like Zoan, Paramecia, and Logia, and I think this goes hand in hand. This goes hand in hand because it's not your typical Paramecia, even if, like, exactly what Kaido said. If it was your Paramecia, he would affect himself and his surroundings, but not Kaido. Logias wouldn't even do it. I don't think Logia would do it as well. This is something very special. This is something that we haven't seen before. I don't think there's any power similar to this that turns other people, like other living creatures into your type. Then we see Luffy basically gouge Kaido's eyes from the inside and just get out of his body while holding his nose. I mean, this is just pure cartoon vibes, and I think when we see Luffy's hand out of the eyes, I think it's Kaido's eyes literally stretched that far. I don't think Luffy just broke through Kaido's eyes or something. I think he turned Kaido's eyes into rubber, and that's how he escaped. That makes the most logical sense, although Oda would draw it in the most goofiest way possible. Moving on from that point, we see Luffy becoming a giant. And I called it before that we're about to see Luffy turn into a giant because the connection between Joy Boy and the giants is very, very, very uncanny. I mean, we sort of expected for Joy Boy to be a giant or have some sort of a heritage of the giants, and I expected Luffy to do the same. If he can basically turn into Gear 3 but Ultra, you'd expect him to turn into a giant and fight against Kaido. And, well, he wasn't giant for too long because I think it's newfound powers and Luffy doesn't have full control of it. He doesn't have the control he needs to basically maintain his giant form for a longer period of time. Moving on from the giant form, Luffy basically turns Kaido into a jump rope. I mean, in all your imaginations, do you ever expect a duck dragon, Kaido the duck dragon, turn into a rope for jump roping for Luffy? No one expected that. I mean, Oda's just taking it to the next level, and I find it very hilarious. I personally find it very hilarious. What's surprising to me after that point is how Luffy takes on the Borrow Breath. He gets damaged, alright, he gets burned, but it didn't really affect him. I don't know how. It can be because of the cartoonish effect that Luffy just, gets burned. It's sort of like Tom and Jerry. If Tom gets burned or something, he just comes back out of the ashes like nothing happened. But although Kaido is taking the cartoonish sort of thing, cartoonish direction when it comes to Luffy versus Kaido, this is very unnatural. Unnatural in the sense that even if Luffy's burnt, he would have some sort of a mark on him, but he just goes back to normal. He just goes back to normal and starts fighting Kaido again, which I find to be very weird, and I think it's a part of his mythical zone powers. Like I stated before when I talked about Luffy's powers in my last video, I don't think we've seen everything, and I think this instant sort of regeneration thing, or maybe him coming out of, him taking the damage, but not completely taking the damage and can sort of recover from it, I think it's a part of his abilities that we have yet to find. Like, Oda hasn't spilled the beans yet. Then we move on to more cartoonish vibes, where we see the reactions of every single Straw Hat that's there. We see the reaction of Chopper, Nami, Kid, Law. Everyone gets a reaction out of Luffy's face when he basically gets thrown into the hall. And I was shocked that we didn't get any comments from them, because when you see Luffy turn into something like that, they've never seen Luffy like this. We haven't been even used to it, and it's freaking me out. It's definitely freaking me out, and I think it would freak out the Straw Hats even more. And I'm surprised that we didn't get more of a reaction from them. All we see is the eyes going forward and whatnot, eyes gouging out and whatever. Typical LoonyToons vibe from the last chapter. I expected more of a reaction, but we didn't get it. I'm a little disappointed, but I think we'll see more reactions in the next chapter. So, from that point onwards, Kaido remarks that Luffy's sort of in his deathbed, and he's about to die, his will is about to be broken, which actually happens. I really like the transformation of Luffy basically going back to his base form again, even worse actually. And we see Miyamoto comment on Luffy's heartbeat again, and his will. So he goes back to his base state, and he basically comes back again to his Gear 5 form. So, a lot of speculations when Luffy got his Gear 5 and we were thinking he has his godlike powers is that his character is naturally destroyed, but that is not the case. We've seen it time and time again when it comes to newly awakened fruits, that the users have a hard time getting used to it. It takes a lot out of them. And the same could be said for Luffy. Luffy doesn't have full control over his awakening. He just did it, and he's about to run out of energy, which is natural because he's not used to the powers. Powers might be overpowered, definitely. Awakenings are overpowered, but there are drawbacks. Oda would not give Luffy a power up without a drawback. So it's very natural for Luffy to go back to his base state, and then we should be sort of feeling ashamed of ourselves for basically underestimating Oda and stating that, well, it was all about Luffy's will when he was in Gear 4, Gear 3, and now that he's a godlike state, his willpower doesn't come into play, which is wrong. We've seen this again where he states that, I'm not done yet, I need to save Wano for the sake of everyone else, and I'm gonna get back my heartbeat the way it used to be. I'm gonna go back to that form, my will is not broken, if I'm dead, I'll just be a skeleton and there's no fun in that. I'm going to go back to that state again. I'm going to fight you until you're down. So that sort of rectifies the point that Luffy still has his will. His will is the only driving force, one of the main driving forces of Luffy basically achieving his goals. He goes back to his state, and from there on we see a continuation of the fight. And one of the most hilarious panels ever was Luffy in this chapter. Kaido hitting Luffy with the Kanabo, and then Luffy's nose and tongue just basically stretches out like the sharpness of the Kanabo and just basically turns himself into rubber. Typical. And it is induced with Haki. You don't expect Kaido to not induce Haki in his Kanabo and attack Luffy, yet it has no effect on him, which is very unnatural. He got hurt, but if it was Luffy's typical form, he wouldn't have been able to do this. And we're seeing this again and again, that even though you attack Luffy with Haki, it doesn't really affect him because he can actually turn whatever is attacking him, whatever weapon he has, and turns that into rubber, as well as his surface, as well as the surface, as well as the body, which is crazy. And that is shown again when Luffy gets smacked with the Kanabo again, and yet Luffy is able to survive that blast without being heavily damaged. And Luffy comes back again with straight fists. Kaido comments that he coated his arms with conquerors and armaments Haki, and he can actually influence his ability around himself, and that includes himself and his weapons. So he's actually surprised by this because this has never happened before. I don't think any other fruit has this ability. And then we finally see Luffy get a punch through Kaido's head. He just basically smacks Kaido's nose and eyes, and we see that his hand just goes through Kaido, but I don't think that implies that it like cut his skin, because it didn't. If Luffy's hand would go through Kaido's, it would basically gouge out Kaido's eyes and nose, and it didn't happen. He just actually got hit, and I think that's Kaido's face turning into Luffy's hand and then going through him. So I think that Luffy now can not only turn himself into rubber, he can turn his surroundings and the person attacking him into rubber. And that I feel is one of the most overpowered abilities that we've ever seen. And I personally love this chapter. It was not that serious. It was very goofy. We got way cartoonish from the last chapter we've seen, and I basically have no complaints because I am loving this. I'm completely loving this. I don't know if this is from my bias for One Piece, but it all makes sense. It all fits. So moving on to what people are saying, that it's now more cartoonish and they're making this serious fight into this LoonyToons-esque environment, which they're not a fan of. I guess it makes sense. When you see One Piece, Oda basically turned One Piece into this comic-y, comedic vibe. It's not in serious moments. He never does this in serious moments. This is the only time that we've seen comedic elements like these in a fight. In a serious fight. That too in a battle to win Wano. And I think I get where people are coming from, but I think we need to give Oda some more time and see where this goes. I think Oda's just having the fun of his life, and I think we should be happy that he's taking this direction for a while. I don't think it's gonna stay. I don't think it's gonna stay until the end of the fight, but for now, I think we should be very intrigued that Oda can actually take some sort of a direction like this. Not many mangakas and writers can take a direction where turn a serious moment into this very comedic-esque, cartoonish vibe. I think this is very masterful art. I have no complaints here. So another thing that people have been talking about is that Luffy is now this special being who has got powers, and this feels different. Well, my question is, when was Luffy not special? Ever since he got introduced, yes, he was strong. He was strong in the East Blue. He did fight off against enemies that were stronger than him at some point where he has to go round 2 and round 3. But he was strong. And then we got his connections with the Will of D. He's the grandson of Garp, the marine hero, son of Dragon, the most wanted man in the world. Has connections with Portgas the Ace, the son of Goldie Roger, and everything. I think he was special from the start. He was special from the start, who reunited, who could basically influence everyone around him, how Mihawk complimented him. And Luffy's been special from the get-go. I think we're just because we're not a fan of it doesn't mean everything that Oda has done for the last 1,000 chapters is just blown out of the window. Because he's special from the start, he is still special, and I think that will carry on to the rest of the series. And that is it for this video. I'll be coming up with a few more videos this week to sort of expand my other thoughts on Luffy's abilities and the whole fandom's reaction about Luffy's power-ups and everything. in the later video. Thank you all so much for watching. If you guys enjoyed, please like and subscribe, and have a great day. Peace.